A lot of Vietnamese people will spend their entire lives trying to get out of Vietnam, oftentimes going through many hurdles just to find a way out. For me, I decided to move back. Welcome back, guys. Today, we're going to look at a very simple comparison that may change the way you look at life. It may actually make you want to move to Vietnam too after you have this realization. So what happened? Why did I move back to Vietnam? And what caused the thought process behind it? Let's find out. People would say, your parents sacrificed everything just to bring you to America, only for you to go back? And the truth is, I didn't come back because Vietnam was perfect. I came back because the life I was living no longer felt fulfilled in the States. I knew that if my cost of living wasn't as high of an upkeep, I wouldn't feel as stressed and tense. I could take my time to figure out what I truly wanted to do in life. I also didn't have this realization right away. Being in Vietnam actually made me understand and see the real benefits of how it's actually possible to create the life I want to live, simply by its cheaper way of life. This profound advantage was what changed my life and opened my eyes to a brand new perspective. If you were born in Vietnam and grew up here, especially having immigrants in your family, you inherit a very specific idea of success. Success means getting out of the village, out of the country, out of instability. The comparison from locals would always be the same. Vietnam is hot and polluted. Everyone is driving motorbikes and getting rained on. The wages are low. Even if you get a job for a corporation, the salary will still never be enough to purchase a house and so much more. Meanwhile, the other countries are looked up upon. In America, there's AC everywhere. People all drive cars. It's clean, it's not polluted. Everyone owns things. The salary is high, even for minimum wage. And you can climb the corporate ladder. There's healthcare and so much more. So my parents carried that story for decades. Leaving Vietnam wasn't an ambition. It was a way to provide a better future for their kids. Many immigrant parents sacrificed everything for their children, just so they could have a chance to grow up and live in the States. So when we moved to the US, that story came with us. Study, work harder, don't complain, follow the rules, and make a living just like everyone else. They all have to do it. So for a long time, I followed that path. But eventually, that version of success stopped feeling like freedom. It started feeling like maintenance. Your daily routine starts to feel repetitive. You start to feel like you have less and less time to actually do the things you want. Inflation is also hitting you while you try to keep up with the never-ending bills and payments. Somewhere along the way, time became the most expensive thing in my life. Not because I didn't have it, but because I realized I never controlled it. Life following a set schedule, alarms set to the same time daily. You wake up, commute to work, recover just enough to repeat and do it all over again. By the time you're off work, you don't even have the mental bandwidth to deal with other things. You start measuring your worth in output. And that's when the questions really start. What am I actually building? Who is this life for? How long can I sustain this pace of working for someone else? When I came back to Vietnam, I didn't have a master plan. I wasn't trying to reinvent myself. I just needed space and wanted more time. I took on a job recording English videos to earn some income. The grind was the same: wake up early to drive to work in traffic and come home during rush hour. However, the purchasing power from the pay was completely different. I finally felt like I had time to think. Time to finally take a moment and breathe. At first, the changes were subtle. Mornings felt slower. Meals felt easier. Progress felt faster.
The biggest takeaway I had was realizing how quickly your life can shift and improve for the better when you change your environment to a place where the cost of living is very low, compared to Western standards, of course. But just a note, what many expats or foreigners share about living in Vietnam is completely different for a local. So I also understand why many people want to leave the country. The experience of Vietnam is different for a local given the lack of advantage they may feel they have in this economy, unless they pursue entrepreneurship, of course. So let's dive in. Minimum wage in the US might be $12.50 an hour. In Vietnam, it's around 60 to 90 cents. The numbers maybe look a little different, but when you scale it to comparison, the pressure is actually worse here for locals. Let's take time for an example as a measurement of currency. In the States, you could buy a bowl of pho in the city for around $15 to $18, or roughly an hour and a half worth of minimum wage work, give or take. To buy a bowl of pho in the city in Vietnam, prices could go upwards of 45,000 a bowl to 85,000 a bowl. That's roughly trading 2 to 3 hours of minimum wage labor just for a meal. Mind you, all this is without considering income tax yet. So let's look at accommodation as another example. To rent a one-bedroom furnished apartment in the States, the average is $1,600 on the low end. Take that and divide by $12.50, and that's roughly 128 hours of untaxed income to pay just for that. Almost 3 out of the 4 weeks you've worked just to pay for housing. And we haven't even included tax or other utilities. So to rent a one-bedroom apartment in Vietnam, the average price on the low end in Saigon is around 7 million Vietnam dong. Converting and rounding the minimum wage in Vietnam to 25,000 per hour, this equates to roughly 280 working hours, almost 2 times the cost of America. Not to mention, some working requirements can also be more demanding in Vietnam, such as working 28 days a month and only getting 2 or 3 days off. So these comparisons barely scratch the surface. The list can go on and on for many more things to compare. Drop your comments below and let me know if you want me to do a separate video on this.
For the examples given in both places, minimum wage barely supports a livable wage. So to some locals, it's at least better somewhere else than here. And that's why some people look outwards. From that perspective, it makes a lot of sense. People should go where they feel like they can thrive. Even if it's just a temporary settlement, it could be used as a stepping stone to something bigger and greater.
I don't pretend my situation is universal. I have the privilege of growing up in America due to my parents' sacrifice, which naturally made me a native English speaker. When I moved back here 10 years ago, there was a lot of demand for English teachers. Luckily, that opened an opportunity here in Vietnam where I could secure an American-based salary making English educational videos. This bought me time. It gave me clarity and it provided me with choices. These 3 things were critical for my personal development growth. If we take the same comparison from earlier of the amount of work for a one-bedroom apartment in Saigon at a Western wage salary of $12.50 an hour, which is roughly, $331,000 at today's current rate of $26,500. That's roughly 22 hours worth of work. Now, when you compare 22 hours to 128 hours worth of labor in the States, that's over 100 hours saved just for accommodation alone. Nowadays, with people working remotely, it's even easier than ever to settle abroad. An hour's wage pays for an entire day's worth of meals now, versus an hour and a half in the States just for one meal. With the salary, I was able to afford a nicer living accommodations than I could find in the States. This provided me with a stress-free environment to feel grounded and motivated. Since I could actually save money now, I had more disposable income I could use to learn and try new things that I wouldn't dare before, like paying hundreds of dollars for courses and going to training masterminds. I still remember my goal at the time was to build a side hustle ecom website selling stuff online. I was just thinking if that could generate $500 to $1,000 a month, I would be set living in Vietnam on top of what I was already doing. I focused more on learning, marketing, and investing into new skills, which ultimately led to my breakthrough when I launched the shop. Within a couple days, the store had already done over $300 in sales, and with another marketing push, it broke over $1,000 in sales in a single day. This was such a pivotal breakthrough moment for me, because never in my life did I believe I could make this much. My goal was just $500 or $1,000 in a month, and I broke $1,000 in one day. When you think about working for someone, you are capped at your hourly wage. When you work for yourself, you are capped by the size of the market you serve. And this broke my limiting belief, and it was a very empowering moment. I've never been the same since. And now I ask myself how something is possible versus pushing it off as, oh, it's too hard or impossible. It confirmed my reasoning for moving to Vietnam and allowed me to now see all the amazing opportunities Vietnam has to offer. It's no surprise that many expats and retirees are looking at Vietnam as one of their top potential options. It's still one of the very few countries where you can live freely and comfortably from $1,500 to $2,000 a month. At the end of the day, the opportunity is not the same for everyone. And I don't judge anyone who wants to leave Vietnam. I fully understand all the reasons why they want to leave. And this video isn't to criticize Vietnam at all, because I love it. It's ultimately about alignment and doing what feels right for you. Everyone's life is different with different goals and purpose. For me, this life makes sense. It wasn't easy to get here, but now I get to design my days. Since I've moved back and taken the entrepreneur route, life here has felt like a blessing. I can work when it makes sense and rest without feeling guilty. I can build quietly and work peacefully on any project that I desire. Ultimately, controlling my own time now, spending it exactly how I want. And strangely, this is the most liberating I've ever felt. I think the biggest takeaway from all of this is that you don't need to be afraid to try new things and always be investing in yourself and your skills. Given how easy it is to come across information nowadays, it should inspire you to dig deeper. Let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to reading your comments. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more.